Okay. So, hi friends. Today, once again, a new podcast and a new guest. So, myself Shrikant here, and today my guest is Prasad Helaskar. So, we met on LinkedIn based on some discussion and some chat. So, he's agreed to be by my host for this particular podcast. So, thanks, Prasad. And just to give a basic intro, so Prasad is working as a SDET QA automation engineer. This is his LinkedIn profile, and looking at his experience. He is working as a QA engineer in this Omnify company in Bangalore. He is having 2 years, 4 months of experience, and based on his experience, I can see he has worked, manual and automation testing. Apart from this, he has his GitHub profile. There he has a lot of. I'm sure he has worked on a couple of automation stuff and some coding. Right. So welcome, Prasad, once again. So can you please introduce yourself shortly?
Yeah. Hey everyone. So myself, Prasad Ilaskar. I'm having 2.4 years of experience with the automation and manual as well. And for as per my experience, I can say that the things are going pretty good around me. And for the new guys who are joining or watching the podcast, so I have a perspective with the new kind of people like automation first, API first perspectives and less about the manual. But yeah, there are many people who are guiding me through it, just like Shrikant and everyone. So yeah, thanks for having me here.
All right, Prasad. So let's start with the hot topic and the typical question, the flow of questions what I ask to every host, every guest, interview questions, right? So because you have worked in, I mean, more than 2 years, you might have conducted a couple of interviews. So from interview perspective, what are the current things they should try? Let's say, a 1 year or 2 year experienced person, what should be their priority in terms of studying and cracking the interview?
So basically, as you know, Shrikant, I have a 2 years of experience. So for me, it was like I conducted some interviews regarding the basics interns and the 1 year position for candidates. So basic flow for me asking during the interview was one and the same. First thing, the candidate should have a good context about the manual testing, understand the users and business perspectives with the manual testing. Then I'll go for the SQL, which is a basic need for the new guy who is coming into the QA industry. Because without SQL, you can't judge anything from the only UI or any perspective. You need a data which is solid. Then another perspective is the automation. He should have a automation context, basic understanding of Selenium and recent automation tools. I will not suggest that he should have a basic understanding of no code or low code tools, but I suggest that he should have a basic understanding of Selenium, Cypress, so that in future he can evolve through those. And then just whatever the language he prefer, he should able to do some basic operations, some basic easy to medium lead code as well, DSA questions. So these are the basic things that I used to ask in the 1 year experience guy. And for 2 years experience guy, I will suggest that he should have a context on Selenium, automation testings, frameworks, what are the current trades which are going on with the AI, without AI, and good understanding, solve problem solving capacities for the using the preferred language and debugging skill. For an experienced guy who is a 2 years plus experience, his debugging skill should be good so that he will able to reduce the problem solving or issue resolving time during the sprints. Yeah, that's what I think about the interview perspective.
All right, so great insight from the 2 year, 2.5 year experienced person. Uh, Upskilling roadmap. Somebody want to upskill. So, what are the one or two skills what you suggest? Typically, they should have.
So basically, if you are upscaling from manual test engineer to the QA, QE, or SAT or SDET, basic thing is first is the programming language, whatever you prefer. So basically, for me, most of the automation engineers prefer Java. I prefer Python. But Java, you should have a good context on OOPS, basic abstraction methods and everything. OOPS basically we can say. And another one is the Selenium. So either it is with the Playwright or Cypress or anything. And if you are interested in the mobile automations, then Appium is the one of the best example to upskill.
Okay. Um, so we'll start with the real journey now in this podcast. So tell me, from your perspective, what are the real QE challenges every day? Let's say top two or three challenges what you have faced so far.
So basic challenges that QE face is the less time. The thing is, whenever the QE receives the build or project to test, there is a very less time remain for the release into the production. So I guess this is the basic challenge most of the people might have faced, that they get a very less time to test whole system, as a regression is very important. The current build should not break the existing system, and he needs to test the positive, negative edge cases in the limited duration. So time constraints is the most difficult or challenging part in the QE's life, that he need to complete the whole task test or whole task into the very limited time. He doesn't have any excuse that this is not done and we can't do it today. He needs to do because the production or the senior management is committed with the time. So that's the first challenge that I received. As an automation tester, I'll suggest that the most of the time it is the synchronizations and the brittle locator strategies are the most difficult or difficult or challenging part of the QE everyday life.
All right. So yes, even I have experienced this for a longer time and in multiple companies and in multiple projects. QE are even very less time. Sometimes I have seen there are items delivered like tomorrow is a sprint review and today they are delivering and expecting to complete manual testing, automation testing, and everything should pass, and they are expecting everything should be green. That is not the case. Okay, that should not be the case. There should be sufficient time given so that if there are some defects that should be reported, then they should be reported, and if there is something critical, then we should stop it, actually leave it to the actual user, because if the defect is found out by the actual user, by the end user, that is very embarrassing case. So that is very important, right? Okay. Next is dev to QE friction point. So based on your experience again, any typical place, or at some point of time you faced some friction between the dev and QE from the technical perspective.
So basically, Dev and QA fractions are very less in my life as I have a very little experience. But I remember there is a one incident where there is a friction called it is a basically integer field, that integer input field where the exponential character is accepted. I think small e, and it's not like the I think, but small e should not be accepted as exponential character into the number field with my perspective. But with the developer perspective, it is the database library that they are using. It is considering small e as an exponential character, and it is accepting in the int box. So that time the friction come up between me and my fellow developer. But later the when we reach out the seniors and get this thing sorted, so then the fraction was resolved with that only positive integers it should accept. So that time the faction was resolved. Although this is the only small fiction which I remember that, yeah, this happens.
This is
So
a great
multiple
point.
times there will,
This is a very
yeah.
great point, and even in my total experience, I never thought of this kind of scenario. Of course, the number can be any number, but then there is a I would say there is a way to break this with this particular setup, and it might impact at other places, like let's say banking. If somebody is having a huge
Mm.
amount in his bank, and if that is having in characters, inside the number, then it is very challenging. So this is a good example for the requirement perspective, right?
Yeah.
Moving on, so effective defect reporting. So what do you think, in such cases or any particular case, you found out that because you added additional details in the defect, that that was more effective, it saved a lot of time to develop for developer, or it quickly auto reproduce and so on. Anything you can mention?
So basically, defect we can categorize into the two sections. One is the front end, that is the front end or front end defect, and another is the back end, which is the API or database level defect. So for front end defect, you can just take a screenshot mentioning that this is what happening with the particular steps that you have conducted during the test, as well as actually address the defect using the you have a Chrome Dev Tools open. In that there is a section called a console. There you can log the defect as well, where it is happening in which file. If you have a good context and understanding about the developer part, then you can actually look into the file where the defect is occurring. So if it's a front end defect, you can attach that console logs, all server logs, whatever are coming into the server. If you have access, QE have access, then he can log into the server and check the server logs as well. So while reporting the front end issue, you must attach these kinds of logs so that developer will not roam around the feature that where it is happening. Irrespective, the steps are there, but the developers might roam around. So these will prevent them. About the backend, there is a API section as network session in Chrome Dev Tool as well, where the all APIs are recorded with their status codes and responses. So for backend issue, you can just log the curl request into the report, as well as the server logs. The server logs is the best thing to add into the report so that developers will easily track out the issue where it is happening, and with this they will able to fix it faster. QAE or QA or any tester will able to also reproduce and get the things sorted faster, and it will reduce the much more time rather than doing multiple iterations that developers are saying it is not reproducing or anything. The logs are the best part or undeniable proof that it is happening or issue is there.
Perfect. So as a part of onboarding process, if some QE joins to the team, I would even go one step further and I would ask that QE person, apart from your Jira and other tools access, get access to the server where there are logs. Okay. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's a lower environment. We are not doing, testing on the production. We are doing on the QA environment, SIT or staging environment. So better to get the
Yeah.
access of the logs as early as possible. Talk to your manager, talk to your lead, because these are our bread and butter, right? So when we test it,
Yeah.
we should have everything available to us, right? So log
Yeah.
window is open, console log is open, network tab is open, and then do whatever you want, and then try to find out issues or test the system. Fantastic.
Yeah. Basically, there should be another monitor where your logs are open. So you don't need to switch between the windows to check what is happening. If you have another screen available, it is a well and good to open the logs in another screen and keep it running whole the day during your all test processes.
Perfect. Okay. So moving on, developer's perspective. Okay. So of course we will have our own perspective. We are QE, so we are always having end user in our mind. Okay. We are the advocate of the devil, right? We are the end user, so we can do anything. So that's what makes us better QE. So, but also there is a developer angle. Let's say there is a item to be developed. There's a user story to be developed. So apart from our view, we should have developer's perspective, that how that person has developed a particular API or a UI, or if there is some infrastructure change. So what do you think? Anything which you can highlight based on your experience that changed your perspective.
So basically, when I was interacting with my developer friends, so what I understand is what he think during the story development is basically first thing he'll think about what are the database data structure he need, basically what kind of tables are needed to get the data which is required in this feature, what are the data he needs to put down into the particular table to as a record to maintain. These things are related to database. So everything related to either he needs to create a new table or he needs to add a new column in a database, he needs to write a migration or anything. So first thing is the his perspective is first thing what data I have in my hand. As you know, the database holds the raw data of the business. It is not a processed data. As soon as the developer or anyone receives the data from database, next thing is the logic implementation where he the ferment or he process the data to get the actual data what we need. We don't we As a developer he can't directly put the data into the raw data into the API and pass it to the front end. He needs to process in between. So that thing is the process layer. Logical layer is implemented after he confirms that what kind of data I am receiving and what processes I need to do. Then there is a coming later data connection between front end and back end, the API part of it. Then he will then my fellow developers are thinking like what data I am parsing to the API, what kind of key value pairs I'm passing, so that in the document I can mention this key contains that this value that front end guy will you attribute. So this key value pair documentations and mapping is done. Then again, after the API is done, then there is a fallback as well. If this API doesn't work, what needs to send, what kind of data we need to pass, or what kind of things that we need to show into the to the front end guy so that he can process about with the error. Then after these all fallbacks and all API point of view is done, then it will goes to the front end. Front end guy is the same. He will again attribute to go to the check the API responses, check, and then again come back to the then he will address what kind of things are shown where. As a UX designer will also input at this point so that he can build a easy and very easy flow and easygoing understanding flow for the end user's perspective. This is how the developer will think as a front end and back end, because the front end guy needs to make things simpler for the end user and back end guy needs to make things easy for a system to understand.
Yeah, perfect. So moving on, log analysis. Okay. So I know we talked about little bit logging thing. So from log analysis perspective, I know we have access to logs, and you mentioned that we have a different screen and there the logs are going on for the full day. So any typical thing what you suggest, like this is how you should anybody can analyze the logs. Okay, based on whatever is your experience. You capture some of the things, or you pause the logs or anything, or you observe in timestamp. So what best thing you can incorporate, or a takeaway for the QV person how to do log analysis.
So basically, I'll suggest that if you have any particular story point, any feature to develop, I'll ask a developer to mention the feature name before any log that he's printing, so that if he's printing out the user data for an login feature, then I'll suggest that put a login in hyphen and then whatever data you need to log out, so that when I'm doing a log analysis, I have a ability, ability or I have a liberty to directly get the sort out the logs with that feature name. Irrespective of that, with that the thing is, if he didn't add any feature, there is a tons of logs coming into the system every second, because there are backend systems, crons are running, workers are running, jobs are running, queues are running. So there the logs will be printed for them as well. If you don't know how to address a particular log, so it will be hard for log analysis as well. So for my perspective, I will every time ask a developer to put a feature name in front of a log or before the log, so that I can grab that feature as well. Feature name, grab with that feature name, so that only that feature related logs will be shown in the file, and then I can analyze if this data is not passed correctly, or whatever data which I have passed or whatever data I was supposed to pass is not going correctly, or log is correct or anything else with respect to that.
Perfect. So yes, I mean almost a similar approach. So basically, we want to nail down or zero down on a particular function or a particular method or a particular module where the error starts, right? So I would say we follow this thing in my earlier projects. It's like telling the address. I want to find somebody on the earth. So first I will tell, okay, this is the
Mm.
country, this is the state, this is the city, this is the a local area, and this is the apartment, this is the floor, this is the room. So if you mention all this thing, okay, of course, in an encrypted way or whatever way, in optimized way, so there it becomes very easy to analyze from which point the error started, and then the backtracing thing that can we can either we can analyze or developer can also analyze. So that way this is how the logs prerequisite, or I would say apart from timestamp, these all thing should be available to give to analyze the logs. And what you said is also correct, the feature name. But sometimes there are two features, okay? So feature 1, 2, 3 is already developed, and now feature 4 is launched. But because of feature 4, feature 1 has also broken. So if instead of searching for feature 4, we should also see the starting point where it start breaking, and then the backtracing. And this is the addressing thing that helps most of the time for both for QE and developer, right?
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Now moving on to the next part, which is random issues. Okay, so random issues is random, obviously, and it's most of the time we are able to reproduce. But if we are not able to reproduce, what are the general steps we should follow to at least give a better picture? This is the proper way, or this is the tentative way to reproduce an issue. What do you think?
So basically, with my previous organization, it was a web-based platform. So the random issues might cause because of the server caching or the network. That is the network issue between the Wi-Fi or connectivity that you are using. So these two reasons might cause the random issues. And there are some points where the developers will code for their own debugging purpose and they forgot to remove it, and it might cause the issue. So for those, what I used to do is basically whenever I got a random issues, as I mentioned, there is a server log used to there. I always keep server logs in my open in my laptop or during my work. So server logs, I used to log it then and there only. Then networks or console logs used to be there. I I used to create a screenshots or whatever necessary. If video is necessary, then the video recording or a screenshot, and then create a Jira ticket for that particular random issue. Don't let it go. Just create a Jira issue and mark it as a low medium priority. Whenever release is supposed to be happen, I used to flag out that issue that this came up during my testing, but it is not occurring again and again. It just occurred once, but I'm flagging it out because we are not sure or we are not completely aware that which step is causing this issue. So first thing is try to reproduce random issues. First thing is try to reproduce. Even if you are attempting to do it, if you tried thrice or four times, it's still working fine. Then mark it as a random. But at the time of release, flag it out. That's my steps to tackle it,
Right.
so that at least senior membership knows about it.
Right. So one of the point we should also mention about the frequency, right? So let's say 3 out of 4 times, or 1 out of 4 times, or 2 out of 10 times. So that frequency is also
Mm.
important, so that the management can take a call. Sorry, so that the management can take a call that how important is this defect to let the
Yeah.
system deliver like this, or is it really important to fix
Mm.
it, or maybe we can take it in the next sprint or whatever, we can put it in backlog, maybe we'll see it when we have bandwidth and so on. So that is one thing, random issues. One more point is for random issues is so we talked about frequency. um, Yeah. One thing what you mentioned earlier. Uh, so let's say because we are working on a dedicated environment, right? So QA environment or SIT environment, it's a lower environment. Let's say staging environment. Sometimes, let's say most of the times, this environment is common for everybody, right? Not only QA, but sometimes the product owner or even the support team or even sometimes developer also access that QA environment and they try to do something for their individual need, which is perfectly fine. Because of that, what happens? Let's say there is a flag, which is a common for everybody, and somebody changes that flag, and we are doing testing, and we assume that that flag is what we wanted. Let's say there is a flag which we expect to be false, but somebody turned it on and then forgot it. So these kind of cases might happen. Flag is just one example. Maybe there is some common setting or some config file has to be there or whatever XYZ. Some XML file has to be there. So that setting got changed and it was not informed to a larger audience. Okay, especially the QE team, or even in the QE team
Yeah,
in your project there are 2 to 3 QE members and they are doing something independently, but they are not informing each other. So that kind of place we are bound to get random issues, which is perfectly fine. It is just that it should be informed so that we will not end up reporting random issues and you know again repeating the same step, raising defect again,
yeah,
fixing it, and so it's a waste of time. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
now coming to the code review. So I hope you have written a lot of code. So any code review tips or anything which you mention, which you can mention, let's say Python or even Java. Let's say top 2 or 3 code review tips.
So for me, before as when I started my early career, I was not very sure about the environment conflicts and these things. So my first code review was very brutal for me because that time the 7 years plus guy was reviewing my automation code. He just pointed out the comments and issues left and right. I was very scared of him. For next 6 months, I haven't raised PR towards him for a 6 month because I was literally scared of him. But later, once I started understanding the code structures and design patterns of the company, I got a habitual of it. So basically, for code review tips, for as an automation perspective, I'll say that keep your locator strategies different layer, your actual methods or scripting file different layer, and keep your data at a different layer so that they one change in certain place will not break anywhere. So if you change a locator or if you got a issue in the locator, you don't need to worry about the data layer or logical layer. You can directly go to the locator layer and alter there. If you understand that, hey, my script is not breaking at a locator level, it is breaking at a logical layer, then you don't need to concern about the data and locator layer. So basically maintain the different layers so that your code will be clean, practical, and readable. So that's what I think. The code reviews are basically should be done around with this as well. But I have a very less experience, so I'm not completely sure how the senior level or
Okay, let
that
me add
person reviewed my
let me
code.
add a lot of things from my side because I have been to this. So many things. First and foremost thing is you should accept that you are bound to get code reviews in the early stage of your career. Okay, and there is no run away from it. Take it positively, work on it, talk to the people. Let there be 40 time code review. Fine, but that 40 times will be helpful for your next you know career. So that is one thing.
Yeah,
Another thing is, in any of the organization, if it is a small, then that is fine. But then if there are, let's say medium to large scale organizations, they have to maintain code review guideline in some confluence or some place. They should document it so that everybody can refer to that, right? That the code should be written in such a way, the variable name should be like this, the function name should be like this, method name should be like this. When you create an object, there should be a you know an effort to close the object or free the memory. So these kind of things should be there. Of course, the bracket closing opening, that is very basic thing. So now what happens? There is a guideline mentioned. Okay, there are some 50 rules are there. Okay, you are following that. and something new comes up, right? So you might say, okay, this is not documented. That is not the case. You should say that, okay, there is 51st code review tip I have got today, so let me go and update the documentation, so that next time onwards there are 51 guidelines. Like this, you can raise it to, let's say, 100 guidelines. So slowly what will happen, apart from you, everybody will get benefit. Okay. And you should also see, one of the tip I will give you, that you should also see what are the code review comments given for others. Like, so there will be a master branch, and then everybody is merging into master branch. So you're developing a code for your particular module, but there are other people who are developing for other modules. So you should also go and see what are the review comments they got. Okay, let it be from anybody to anybody. So that will be an also input for you for future needs. Okay, you can understand that, okay, this was a not correct coding implementation, so I will implement, let me go ahead and implement it, and let me see what benefit I get. So that is how slowly the code review guidelines should increase and everybody should follow it.
Yeah, this is, as I mentioned, I'm a new guy, so I'm not completely aware how the standard procedures work goes on. But yeah, thanks for this. We definitely look forward for this kinds of things.
All right. So this point I will cover the knowledge upskilling on job training. So see, every once you got into some kind of a job, you're always busy. You have targets, you have timing to attain. You have to deliver in such and so time. But you should also upskill yourself parallelly. Okay. So one thing is, I would best say, in my time or even today, there are portals, there are available courses on Udemy and other platform. But the best thing, what I thought is, learn from YouTube videos. Go and search different GitHub repositories, search for the other medium, let's say medium.com. There is a website, there people are writing articles. Stack Overflow is also one of the good place to find answers to almost every question you will fail, or you want to have an answer. So that is very good source to develop your knowledge and upskill yourself, right? Okay, so Prasad, it was good to discuss with you, and for this time we'll conclude the session here. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you.